Even as we get ready to listen to your word, my Savior, Father, we just want to give you majesty, oh Lord. Open our hearts, Father. Open our minds, oh Lord, that we may receive from you, Lord Jehovah. And even as we listen to your word, Lord, give us the ear to listen to your spirit. We give you glory, we give you honor. In the name of Jesus, we have prayed. Amen. Hallelujah. Have your seat.
I am so excited to be here and to have a moment to share God's word with you. I want to thank the chair, Sister Patricia, for the invitation. And I received a message from our Sister Patricia and saying, hey, Pastor Wafula, I got a couple of men from our chapter that met you, and they think you are good. And they think you might be useful to our chapter. And I would like to extend an invitation to you. Now, let me tell you something. There is something about women leaders and women servants of God that is unique, that is different from men servants of God. Now, when she sent me the invitation, I quickly went back to this moment when Jesus had died. And remember, women went to the grave first, right? They saw what had happened. They carried the good news to the men leaders. Do you remember what the men leaders told them? We have seen Jesus, he's alive. Come on, he's alive. The men are like, shut up, women. We do not want these childish women talking our minutes. We're going to go to the grave and find out ourselves. Then we can believe. Right? Now I thought about Sister Patricia. And I'm like, if she was a man, she probably would have said, I want to meet Pastor Wafula and hear him speak somewhere. I don't want the embarrassment of bringing somebody and I don't know what he's going to say. And all the blame when things go wrong. Even the vice chair says, I told you. I told you. So, instead, but if we kept wondering why in the 60s you only have 2 children. And so we hang on each other knowing there is no third person. Right? Now, I have brought her here so that if I mention family issues, you know we live in a nation where fact-checking people is very important. With our politicians and our president, fact-checking is very important. And so, she will be my first check. Please ask her if I mention things that you need to fact-check. She is your to-go person. But I'm glad that we are here with her to share the gospel with you tonight. The theme I was informed by the chair for your chapter this year is God is for us. Derived from the book of Isaiah chapter 54 onwards. Let me just read a piece of that Isaiah. And I will let you know, if I give you the background of why Isaiah wrote what he wrote, you will understand why that is extremely important, that he had to write that way. So, Isaiah 54, from verse 17. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Yes. Every tongue that shall raise against thee in judgment, thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, says the Lord. No weapon raised against you shall prosper. Nobody who comes against you shall ever win. Thus says the Lord. Nothing that is ever raised against you shall have even the slimmest chance of success. Thus says the Lord. However, that statement is pregnant with a lot of other embedded information in the book of Isaiah. And luckily enough, I have a PhD in biblical studies, Old Testament particularly. So I took a lot of classes in Isaiah. And I'm here to tell you that when Isaiah wrote these words, the Israelites who are recipients of this message had gone through a very, very hard time. The Israelites had gone through a very, very hard time. In modern times, if we are to compare what the Israelites went through, the closest that an image can come to my mind is the Jewish Holocaust. Or for us Africans, the Rwandan genocide. Or the Darfur region of Sudan. That is how close the Israelites were when Isaiah wrote these words. They were a brutalized small group of people in the larger context of the ancient Near Eastern empires. What had happened was Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Babylonians, was conquering small kingdoms all around the ancient world. And Hezekiah, the last king of Israel, in his confidence in God, in his trust that God will never, never, ever let his people be defeated. And much more importantly, that in the faith that the temple in the ancient Israel was the symbol of God's presence on earth. And the Israelites had this belief that anybody can destroy everything in the world. Any political king can destroy the whole of Israel, but nobody can ever destroy the temple. God is inside. Nobody can ever destroy God. That is how strong their belief was. And there is even a tradition right now in certain cultures and even in war, where if people are fighting and the people run into a church, no soldier will go there and kill them. Because that is a holy place, a sanctuary for God. However, for Hezekiah, Hezekiah, when the Babylonians came to conquer Israel, Nebuchadnezzar the king sent advance message to him and said, Hezekiah, you have no army, you have no God, you have nothing that will ever defend you from my power. I advise you to surrender, and you're going to belong to me. That is your only safest song. To give up, surrender, forget about God and Yahweh that's going to defend you. Forget about it, surrender. And if you surrender, I may change my heart and spare your people what I'm about to do. Hezekiah sat down and he said, I trust God. I believe in God. The temple is the habitation of God. Nobody is going to destroy God, and I stand my ground. So he sent a message back to Nebuchadnezzar and said, we are not surrendering. We are God's people, and God is going to defend us. Nebuchadnezzar said, all right, I will see you in a couple of days. And he did. He came to Jerusalem. He besieged the city. Many people were killed. Those who survived went into the inner places of the city, into the rocks, into basements, into forests. Others ran into the temple. And they stayed there hoping that God is going to deliver them. And for good reasons, God did not deliver them. I'll explain that in a moment. But God did not deliver them. And so Nebuchadnezzar overran the city. He besieged it for 60 days. People were starved of food. Those who were in the temple, they began dying. And so he did not even need to fight. When he eventually broke into the city and the temple, they took out the king and the royal family. He had 7 sons. And Nebuchadnezzar said, let me show you what happens to people who rebel against my power. And in the ancient world, terror was a technique of war and survival and fighting. So he wanted to instill terror in the people of Israel and any other nations around who might want to resist. So he paraded all the 7 sons of the king together with his wives, concubines in the ancient world, and he killed them one by one in the presence of the king. When they were all gone, he said, King, that is what happens to people who rebel against me. Where is your God? As if that was not enough. He said, I'm not done with you yet. So he took the king and he scorched his eyes out with with an iron bar that had been put in the fire. Scorched his eyes out. Embalmed it in a way, I don't even know how he did not die. But he did not. So they scorched all his eyes out after killing all the members of his family. And they tied him to a donkey. And they marched him from Jerusalem to Babylon. A distance of about 60 miles. And so Hezekiah arrived in Babylon on foot, 60 miles, several days, emaciated, everybody in the family gone, Israel completely demolished. They were never able to rebuild again. The theme for my message today is believing Christians. Believing, kuamini. Wakristo wanaoamini, believing Christians and living Christians. Believing Christians and living Christians. Wakristo wanaoamini na Wakristo wanaoishi. That is what I'm going to talk about. And so, I do not have much time to go into the story of the Israelites. But I wanted to preface this as the reason why God did not save them. God did not save the Israelites, including their king, because they were believing Christians and believing believers. Christianity was not a name by them. Believing people and not living people. They were believing in the faith, but not living out the faith. They wanted God, but not with the package that comes with godliness. And so, when you read the message of Isaiah from chapter 1 onwards, the block of chapter 1 to 39, you get this material where the prophet Isaiah, among other prophets, they kept telling the Israelites, repent your sins, change your ways. If you change, God is going to forgive you. God is going to heal your land. God is going to defeat your enemies. God is going to be your God. And the Israelites, including Hezekiah, said, God can never let his habitation be destroyed no matter what. We are believing people. We believe in God. We believe that he has said he's not going to get this place destroyed. And therefore, that is what we stand by. The prophets kept telling them, no, you do not need to believe. You need to do something different. You need to do something extra. You need to do something. And they kept saying, we don't, we don't, we don't. And they went to the grave with, we don't. Believing Christians and living Christians. So, I just want to put a disclaimer, as I will define what I mean a little bit later in my sermon. But the fact that God allowed the Israelites to be destroyed that allowed even a foreign power to infiltrate them has nothing to do with the fact that God allows his people to be defeated. It doesn't overrule, disqualify the fact that if God is for us, nothing can be against us. This leads the apostle in the New Testament, Apostle Paul, in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8 to 10, and we're going to read that. Second Corinthians chapter 4, verse 8. I'll start with verse 7. But we have this treasure in a jar of clay to show that all this surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are pressed, hard pressed on every side, but we are not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted and not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. We always carry around the death of Jesus in order that the life of Jesus may be manifested in our body. So the Apostle Paul, still knowing even what happened to the Israelites, comes around to speak of the fact that nothing that is raised against God's people can ever win. Nothing that is raised against those who believe in God can never succeed. That in fact, within the failing and the nothingness and the seeming failure, there lies the success of God's people. In failure, in defeat, there lies God's people. And so Paul can speak of, we can be crushed, but we will never be completely destroyed. We can face, we will be oppressed, but we will never be defeated. Does it mean we will not be sick? Brothers and sisters, no, we will. Does it mean that we will have no money sometimes? No, we will. Does it mean that we will not have differences in our families, man, wife, children? No, we will. But in the midst of all those seeming difficulties and the troubles, God is writing a different story. When the devil begins writing those defeats and failures, God generates a new narrative and a new story, which is success and nothing but success. Amen. When the devil continues defeat and nothing but failure, within that story, there is God's side of things. There is the devil's side of things, but there is also God's side of things. The more the devil says you are defeated, you are out, the more God says you are in, you are on your way to success. There is no room that God's people can ever be completely defeated. Let me share with you partly part of my own stories. So standing before you is a brother who has a PhD in biblical studies, one of the disciplines of learning. The very highest that anybody can ever learn, right? Once you get a PhD, there's nothing else you can know. And sometimes we are called permanently damaged brain people, right? You no longer think right. Because there's nothing else you can know, right? And so I have reached the epic, at least of the academic career of any person in my discipline. However, within that journey of success, this doctor you look at, there is the devil side of the story. For many years, one defeat after another. And within the writing of the story of defeat, God was writing the story of a doctor. Amen. Praise the Lord. Amen. Now you can fact check this with my sister later on. But when we were very young people, level. My sister was probably in Form 4, Form 5. I was in Form 1. My mother had issues with family members. And we were raised by a single mother, right? So she was our only hope, and she was doing very well. Businesswoman, very successful in her time, taking us to school. We were one happy, fatherless family. Eating well, sleeping well, we were okay. Until this one moment, when I'm in Form 1, and I returned from school, and my mother was not there. She simply disappeared. Just vanished. And for the next 6 years, we never knew where she was. We didn't know what had happened to her. All we knew was the story of her family conflict with the family members. And for whatever reason, our mother decided that her best bet was to disappear. You can imagine in Form 1, right? At the very beginning of high school in Kenya. My sister was in the middle of her schooling. Things came to a standstill very quickly. And we realized we cannot go to school as we thought we could. And I just went to school, I have no fees, nothing. So I was in and out of school. And at some point, the high school, my principal high school, had just had it. And he came to me, I still have that letter that he wrote. He said, before he gave me the letter, he said, "Young man, you are a very good young man. You are very hardworking." I was number 3 in my first term, and the only term that I was in school in a stable way. You look like you're a bright boy, but I'm the principal. I don't run a charity school. We need school fees, and you have none. So I'm sorry I have to get you out of my school. He handed me the letter, and that was it, right? My sister was having her own struggles with no fees. And I went home with that letter knowing that that was the end of my academic career, right? So the devil, at that point, had started writing my academic failure and nothingness and not going anywhere. But within that story, God started writing a story of a successful boy. And within that, I had just gotten saved then also. And I just believed that God's going to do something. I didn't know what. And I just sent information to my other classmates, "Please send me notes, I want to read." And they did send me the notes. For the entire period of at least 1.5 terms, I was never in school. And one morning, I just went to see my aunt, my mother's sister. And I told her, "Look, I want to get back to school. It's very important that I do. But I was sent away permanently years later." And she cried, and we cried together. And she said, "What do you want me to do?" "I'm going to take me to school." "What am I going to say?" "I don't know. Just tell the headmaster you have brought me to school." And she did. So, on our way to school, we arrived there, and my aunt, being not too intelligent beyond myself, decided that she's going to say exactly what I said. And so we knock on the headmaster's office, we sit down, and my aunt says, "Sir, I have come. Thank you for giving us a minute." So the headmaster is standing. He doesn't know why we are here. He knows me, and he knows I'm not supposed to be there. And so he's pacing up and down, turning his books, and he's not even attending to what my aunt is saying. So my aunt said, "I have brought this boy to school." And she stopped. And the headmaster said, like, "Go on." He's like, "No, sir, I'm done." So the headmaster looks at me instead of looking at my aunt, because he knows I was the recipient of the story and also the explanation that I should never I will never be in school because it's not a charity place. And he's like, young man, I thought I had a conversation with you. Do you remember? You know, I turned to my aunt and said, no, sir, today was my aunt's day. It wasn't mine. So I'm not going to say anything. So he simply said, you're wasting my time. Get out of here. Mama, I'm sorry. I need to go to a meeting. And he left. So when we left, my aunt cried a little bit. And I cried with her. And she became smarter after that. So she said, there is a district education officer. Let's just pass there and tell him the story. And I'm like, my aunt, that's a good idea. So we go to the district officer's office. We knock on the door, we come in, and we sit down. Now I'm thinking my aunt is going to be a little smarter, and actually she was. So she says, officer, I need your help. This boy, look at his report card. He was number 2 a term and a half ago. He has no fees. His mother is not here. I have 70 children of my own. I can't help this boy. What can we do? And the district officer looked at her and looked at me and said, ma'am, the principals make the final decisions. We don't interfere unless it's bad. She's like, this is bad. Don't you see? And she started crying. And actually in her tears, like I said, women are very smart. In her tears, this man saw that this was very important. And so I said, Mama, so we step outside. Her tears worked very well. And he takes the phone and calls the headmaster. Whatever conversations they had, I don't know. But 5 minutes later, he calls us in. He says, young man, I have put my life online for you. And here is the deal. The headmaster has accepted for you to go back to school on condition that you're going to be number 1, number 2, or number 3 when the exams are done. Now, this is the middle of that term, of Form 1. I haven't been in school for almost 1.5 years. If you are number 1, number 2, number 3, you will have saved my skin. If you are not, I do not ever want to see you here again. And he said, leave my office. And we went away. So my mother says, I'm not going to gamble on the headmaster. We're going to go straight back. You're not even going home. I have nothing except a very old piece of clothing. Anyway, to cut the long story short, we went back. The headmaster put me in class, and he repeated what the education officer had said. Number 1, number 2, number 3, or you are out. And I said, yes, sir. You can imagine the pressure on me. No books, no pocket money, nothing. Number 1, number 2, number 3. I still sing that song up to today. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Or nothing else. And I worked very hard. When kids went to sleep, I took a bucket of water, put my feet in, and read. When they went to play, over the weekend when they went to town, I read. I did everything I could. I went to see teachers, I asked for help. When the examination results came out, I wasn't even number 3, although I was not number 1, but I was number 2. Praise the Lord. So you can see God started writing that story of success, even in the story of failure. In the story that you will never make it, God had started writing, you will make it. And I did. What's number 2? And I went home not knowing, because we hadn't discussed the fees, by the way. And I wasn't going to say a single word. And I don't know, he just said, go back to school. The headmaster says, go back to class. So we close. The time is closed. I have no idea whether I will still work with the same privilege in Form 2. Believe me or not, that very year, when we went away, there was an organization called Jomo Kenyatta Foundation. They published school books. They had started going around the country. They were looking to sponsor some smart kids in high schools. And they had come to my school too. They had told the headmaster, we're going to pick the first 2 students in Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4 to benefit from our full fees scholarship. Praise the Lord. So I carried my iron sanduku to go back to school. No, I wanted to avoid the headmaster as much as I could. I did not want to beat with him because I knew what I was going to get. So, unfortunately, one moment we just rammed into each other around a corner. And do I go that way or that way, or do I just pretend I haven't seen him and stand? And it's like, young man. I'm like, oh my gosh. Young man. Yes, sir. And he's like, you're one lucky boy. And I'm like, speechless. Huh? You're one lucky boy, huh? And he's like, listen, we have a foundation that has signed on to pay for your school fees because you are number 2. And he added, if you remain among those numbers for the next 4 years, your fees is paid up to Form 4. And that's what happened. Praise the Lord. So I'm here to tell you this, my friends, that within the story of failure, whatever that may be in your life, the Lord is writing a success story. When you become sick, that sickness is your blessing. Don't begin cursing God and cursing doctors and cursing your spouse. And saying, had it not been for these children, this blood pressure would be low. They come to school, all their homework, they don't know I work 24. Shetani ya watoto shimbo. When you take your kitchen and start praising God, because within that high blood pressure is your blessing. When you experience financial difficulties, it is not that God is not aware. Neither is God deaf that he doesn't know you need money. Yeah. So don't go banging walls and say, God, bring money now, or I'm not going to believe in you. No. Say hallelujah. Amen. Praise the Lord. I'm not going to have coffee at 10 today because I have no money. Hallelujah. In fact, I'm going to lose 1 pound because of that. See the positive of bad things. Don't see the negative of bad things. If I miss lunch, man, I've been having problems with my weight. Here comes my chance to reduce weight. Hallelujah. When the real problem is that you don't have money for anything. And as you glorify God within those difficulties, God begins writing your success story. God begins changing and rewiring the story. The devil is wiring the wires, electric wires, to malfunction and burn the building. God begins rerouting the wires to bring electricity and power. So I moved over there, went to college fast forward, and before I went to college, when I did my Form 6 examination, the brothers who came to the men's conference know this. I didn't pass, The cut-off point to go to university in our year was 10. And I worked hard. I was a powerful preacher by then. Fire of the Holy Ghost. So I'm telling all the students, we will meet in Nairobi University. People like me, they don't, Moi had just started. People like me don't go to Moi. We are Nairobi University material. Main campus. That is where we belong. And if you trust God, let's meet there. And people looked at me, I was very serious, and I wasn't joking about it. I'm like, Hezekiah, God is not going to destroy this, right? That's in the Bible saying we're going to be heads and not the tails. Do you believe it? Yes. And I did, literally. How can a man of God not go to university? And by the way, I had been a very smart boy all through. I maintained number 1 to number 3 position until I reached Form 4. After I graduated my Form 4, I don't know what happened to me. When I was in Form 5, Form 6, I don't know, don't even ask me. I got a brain freeze. And everything I did was not above 50% in my class. I worked very hard. Don't get me wrong. I still had feet in the water. And I preached success. When the examination came, I got 9 points. 1 short of going to university. Tell me, you preachers and men of God and women of God, are you going to stand and preach again? What if that congregation is the people you told me let's meet in Nairobi? Now, listen, you are not only not going to Nairobi, you can't even go to Moi. So there I was. I went back, I was living with my grandmother again. My mother is still missing, by the way. I'm living with an old grandmom that raised both of us. Took us in when our mother left. And I don't know how many times I cried myself to death. I don't know how many times I cursed God. I don't know how many times I forgot the very gospel I'm preaching to you today. At that point, my relationship with God was over. And to make it worse, I had a family member of ours who, after my tears were over, I went to live with him. He lived in town, he was doing very well. In the hope that I can pick up myself and restart again, maybe look for useless teacher position. Right? And be some useless person for a while. And hope God will meet me somewhere. And as I was searching useless teaching, my relative said this to me. Young man, you're the most stupid of people that I've ever met. You see, all people who say they love God, they're Christians, they're all stupid. They will never get anywhere. You see me, I'm a lawyer. I don't care about God. Intelligent people don't do stupid things like religion. Like Mungu saidia. Let me give you advice without payment. You are my relative. The moment you're going to stop being this stupid to say Mungu's idea, you're going to be on your way to success. Now, if you are a Christian, you can imagine how hard that is. It was a hard message. Very hard. I cried for several days. I began asking God. And I made a covenant. I said, God, it's not about me. I don't even want to succeed in education. I just want to get a useless teacher position. Earn a salary and marry a wife, settle down, one question. My children will be dead, they can take of themselves. But because my cousin has said you are people who worship God are useless people, give me an opportunity to learn as far as I can go. I want the reality of the message that we are not going to be failures to be real. And if you make this happen, God, I'll go back. Not to derail my relative or to disabuse him, but I'll just go gently tell him this is what God can do for those who love him. Fast forward, God opened doors. I taught useless teaching for a while. God opened place for me to go to college. And for the first time, I left the country to go to Britain. At that point, it began dawning on me that this story of failing my Form 6 examination was actually my passport to success. Amen. That was my way out of Kenya and a way to who I have become. Amen. Praise the Lord. So when you begin noticing failures, difficulties, and troubles in your life, I want you to notice that those are going to make you the best of God's children. Amen. Those are going to engineer you to become the very successful person that your other story is seemingly contradicting. God is for us. Paul says, and if God is for us, who can be against us? I will let you read that, but it's very important. I'm going to hang on it for a couple minutes. If God is for us, who can be against us? Paul says in Romans chapter 8, verse 31. If God is for us, who can be against us? I'm just going to read a little bit of it. What then shall we say? Romans chapter 8, verse 31. What then shall we say in response to this? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? It is God who justifies. Who is he that condemns? Christ Jesus, who died, more than that, who has raised to life, is at the right hand of God and is also interceding for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, or trouble, hardship, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? The answer is no. Nothing shall ever separate us from the love of God. Nothing shall ever separate us from the love of God. God did it for me. God has written so many successful stories, and God is going to write yours too. Yes. God has blessed people, and God is going to bless you too. God has solved people's problems. God is going to solve yours too. God has been working in history over the years, and God is still working. And his story is the same across generations, across people, across genders. I knew you, he says to Jeremiah, before I formed you in your mother's womb, to bring you good things and not bad things. I'm paraphrasing. I knew you before you were born. I know your story. I know the hairs of your... I know what you think. I know what you go through. I know your struggles. I know everything. And I want you to know that my plans for you are for success and never failure. Praise the Lord. For people who are living Christians, God's plan is success and never failure. Believing Christians, God's plan is success and not failure. However, here lies the catch. In the very statement that Paul says, please notice it very carefully. If God is for us, who can be against us? There is the if. Capital I, capital F. That is what most people fail to capture. And if you fail to capture what in our contemporary American language we call fine print, you are doomed forever. I'm going to give you my own example, and I will tell you, come back to the scripture. Because a lot of us who are believers, we want God to be for us. We want God to fight our battles. We want God to lead us into success. But we forget that God has says, if, the Apostle Paul, if God is for us, who can be against us? And Solomon the king, when he prays in the Chronicles, he says, God, if your people who are called by your name shall do what? Shall humble themselves and pray. Remember again the if. If your people can do this, then God, you will do this. So there is the fine print. And if we miss the fine print, we will have missed the whole purpose of Christianity. And we will oscillate between believing Christians and living Christians. If my people who are called by my name. So let me tell you my own story of being a novice, a stupid person when it comes to matters of fine print. And some of us may have also been victims, right? So, roll the clock back to 2001, right? I'm doing very well with my wife in graduate school, and we got a very nice living arrangement where we lived in a guy gave us a house, rent-free, for services we were rendering for him. So we lived in a suburban area, posh, Runda area of Philadelphia. No rent, no food. He paid the food for us. He paid rent for us. Electricity. So when people talk about, my gosh, it is cold and electricity has gone high, I'm like, what are you talking about? Praise God, hallelujah. I have no idea what you're talking about. Wi-Fi is kind of, I'm like, what are you talking about, right? For 10 years, that was our life. Now for those 10 years, that's when I committed the most stupid act of my life too, without seeing the fine print. So, I sit with my wife, we decide, now that we are rent-free, we are food-free in terms of expense, we have some extra money lying around. And we were like, we don't want to waste this money. We need to find some place and lock in this money and save it for whatever project we'll have in the future. So we were very smart. We had a mind of like people who knew what they wanted. So we looked at financial options. Where do we put this money? You know, you're having like about 3,000, 4,000 a month that is lying around without anything purpose, right? And we all know how tight money is for us, right? And we decided we're going to put it in a house. So we're going to buy a house, rent it also, so somebody who lives in it pays money for us, and we pay the mortgage. So the money that we are putting on account, we just pay the mortgage, save the money in the house. Later on, when we want to sell the house, we'll have money. We're going to go home, buy 60 acres of land in Kitale. Bam! Settle down, tell people tumefika. Karibu kwangu chai ya maziwa. You know? So we looked things in place. We were very good. Until the Bush policies rolled around in 2008, right? Damn Bush. Well, so in 2008, we have been paying this house for almost 7 years. We are very good. We know we have locked in some money. So things begin going bad. The housing market goes down. We start panicking like everybody else. Oh my God, what do we do with this house now? So we decide we're going to ride the wave a little bit into 2010 and see what happens. And maybe we're going to sell the house 2011. We are good to go. Bad mistake, right? So in 2011, we are like, okay, this is it. We need to sell this house before things go really bad. Now, we have no economic mind. We have no financial mind. Things were already bad, like beyond bad. We are thinking they're going to get bad soon. See? Ujinga ni kitu mbaya. So we were there like that, and so we looked for our Kenyan friend who is a realtor. Please, we need to sell this house. Come and help us prepare the house. Tell us how much money we're going to get out of it, right? And she comes, she's very diligent, she knows her job very well. She walks around, surveys the house. She does her maths, and she calls me, she says, Pastor, I have bad news for you. I'm like, what? Did somebody die? She's like, no, it's about your house. I'm like, don't say it. She's like, I have to say it because you asked me to. I'm like, okay. So she's like, listen, if you sell your house now, you will need to pump in about 15 to 20,000 to even be able to sell it. You know now, if you have a mind like mine that has never seen the classroom of a maths class, you'll understand how confused I was, right? What are you talking about? And so she walked me through the numbers, the figures, and how things work. And she's like, the housing market has gone down. The value of your house is like 40,000 less than when you bought it. And your house, you have people that you are allowed to live in have made it so dirty, you need about 7,000-8,000 to clean it up. And so you have no money there. So I'm like, what do you advise me? She's like, keep quiet, shut up, and keep paying the mortgage and stay put. That is what I have done up to now, right? So I walked through the papers that I had signed 201 about the money matters. And that's when I realized even a much more disturbing fine print, which is that I am paying a mortgage of about 1,100. I asked for the higher side myself because I had money lying around. I realized that 900 of the money that I was paying was going towards the interest payment. And every month I'm only paying $200 as money I'm putting down to my house. I started speaking Bukusu. That is how it went. Like, you can't speak English, you can't speak Swahili. It is so bad that the only way you can say it is the language that your mother taught you. So now I listen and I'm like, if I knew all of the fine print, including the fact that 900 of my money will be interest, I'll have simply put my money in the bank. And 10 years of 1,200 a month, I will buy the house hard cash. Now I realized one more thing that made me speak more Bukusu. The idea that I bought the house for about $250,000. Now, because now I started thinking about interest and all that, I realized by the end of the loan, 30 years, I'll have paid about $450,000. I won't translate the Bukusu words that I spoke to myself. Now, let me bring that same knowledge to the Bible now. Because a lot of us make the same mistakes when it comes to matters of faith. Believing Christians and living Christians. Now, here is my amateur definitions. Believing Christians are people who hold on certain Christian principles. They know God exists, they pray, they sing, they give offering, they go to church, but that's about it. They sing, they pray, they go to church, they believe God is there, they believe heaven is there, they even believe they are going to heaven. That is where their Christianity stops. When push comes to shove, these Christians will shift their Christian positions depending on circumstances. They only have faith in God and believe in God. They do not have a living faith with God. When things get bad, you begin hearing statements like this. You know, I believe God, but you have annoyed me so much, I'm just going to put aside my Christianity and deal with you as a man. When I have dealt with you as a man, I'll go back and I'll take my Christianity. I will deal you as a human being because that's the only way you understand. So we can lay off our Christianity and take it back depending on circumstances. That is why, in the context of us Kenyans, you can realize people have deeply Christian faith. But when you want to know which tribe I come from, are you listening to me? Begin talking about Odinga and Kenyatta, and you will know where I come from, even when I'm a Christian. We quickly shift our Christianity and put it aside and identify ourselves with those tribal sentiments. If you are believing Christian, you wouldn't even know there's anything wrong. Even like you are transitioning between your faith and otherworldliness. It's so easy and seamless that you don't even know you have sinned until somebody says, brother, that is sin. You're like, eh? It is not sin to be a Kikuyu. It's not sin to be Bukusu, right? Yeah. We quickly transition. And so you find even some of the worst tribal clashes and some of the instances were stories committed by Christians. One of my sad stories was this story of a group of Christians, members of a church, who burned down the church, who burned down the house of their own pastor. And within that house was an ailing grandmother and the mother of this child. They locked the door. The mother of the pastor, luckily the pastor wasn't there, and the brother and the child of this pastor died in that house. And these are people this pastor had been ministering to for years and years. They called him friend. They called him our pastor. But when tribal clashes arose, they quickly crossed boundaries. They see no sin to defend what is our own. Believing Christians. However, there is another group that I will call living Christians. Living Christians are those who absolutely embrace the ideals of the gospel and constantly reevaluate their lives to ensure that they live to the ideals of the gospel. Living Christians are those who constantly embrace the ideals of the Christian gospel and constantly reevaluate their lives to measure to the ideals of that gospel. These are people who say it's not enough to say I know Jesus. It's not enough to say I go to church. It's not enough to say I pray. I need to take a step further and live that faith out. For these people, when even the worst of the worst things happen, they will stand with the gospel no matter what. When their faith is put to test, they will stand with the gospel no matter what. They will defend the faith no matter what. They will go even against families for the sake of the gospel. They will be like Joseph, like Job, who got between the wife and the gospel. He looks at the wife in the eyes. You know, this woman you have loved for years, she has been a good wife. And this one moment she tells you, curse God. And Job's choice is very clear. I'm going to stand with God against my wife. And he says, wife, I don't know what else he said, but he probably said, I love you. You have been good to me. But right now, you speak as one of the most foolish women. God can give, God can take. May the name of the Lord be praised. He chose to stand with God even against his own wife. That's hard, right? You know, for those of you who are husbands and wives, you know, sometimes when wives want something, they are talking like in the middle of the night. It's 2 a.m. Jose, why can't your brother leave our house? You know, he came to stay for 1 week, now he has overstayed. You know, it's like a mosquito. Let me sleep, Mom, we're going to talk later. Okay. I'm sorry. 3 minutes later. By the way, Mose. And by morning, your ears are hurting, right? And you are a believer. Now you are deciding, do I send my brother away so that my wife cannot wake me up too? Or do I tell her? She's speaking like one of the most stupid women. And she's going to wake me up now, not at 2, but 4 a.m. Which one is my choice? Brothers, what choices do we make? Often. Unajua ndugu, bibi amekaa mkaima. Sasa, wewe tembea tu kidogo royali kibao utarudi. Kwangu kumechacha. Mine is difficult. I can't sleep. So just go away for a while. And you know that going away for a while is actually going away for good. When he says, my brothers are working, no. I will tell you, stay put. And we have seen families where, you know, even a wife has turned against her people, or our husband has turned against her people, because you have this problem and you can't decide. Oftentimes, my brother, if you are a living Christian, you take a step back and ask, what will God want me to do in this circumstance? I'm having trouble with my wife. What does God want me to do in this circumstance? Oftentimes we become believing Christians and we answer back wrongly. If you are a wife, take a step back. Ask, what does God want me to do? If you're trouble with children, trouble with your boss, don't have an attitude. As in, nitanyamaza the whole day, ndiajua mimi pia ni mkali. That's a believing Christian. If you are a living Christian, you are not going to keep quiet against your boss, your family, your children. You're going to be happy, dance and smile. But as you close the door, you're going to cry, and when you are done, ask yourself, what? And explain to them, like Job did. If God can give, God can take. Why are you upset? This is God's doing. You are not going to compete against God. You want me to curse God, God's going to kill me. So I'm not going to do that. And please understand my position, right? I'm your husband, I'm your wife, I'm your child, I'm your worker. But this is my position. Now I want to finish, so don't get annoyed with me. That's a long sermon. I'm winding up. I just need 40 more minutes. Believing Christian will hold the positions of faith no matter what. I don't have time to read these scriptures, but you can write down if you're writing. So let's talk about a man called Joshua. Joshua, just like the story of the Israelites, led the Israelites during a very, very difficult time. Very hard time. Very complicated enemies. And God had appointed him to be the leader. And in Joshua chapter 24, verse 14 and 15, Joshua makes his position known and clear. He calls the people of Israel. They are oscillating between believing Christians and the living people of God. And he calls them to a gathering like this. And he says, here is my announcement. I don't care who you want to worship. I don't care who you want to serve. But as for me, in my house, we will serve the Lord. I don't care who you want to serve. I don't care who you choose. This is very particular. This is personal. This is me. This is my faith. Living Christians are people who make absolute, resolute positions about their faith. If you're going to be a living Christian, you make it absolute. As for me, it doesn't matter whether I'm going to lose a job, I'm going to lose benefits, I'm going to lose whatever. As for me, I will serve the Lord. Now, let me tell you what happens when you begin being a living Christian. That is where the catch comes in that I was talking about. When Joshua began taking that position very strongly, roll back. Now, the battle is very fierce at some point. In Joshua chapter 10, verse 12 to 15, is facing the Amalekites, groups of people that are seasoned soldiers. They have fought for years. He doesn't know what to do. And because he is a living Christian, resolute, absolute about his faith, he looked at the problem and he made a declaration. God, listen to me. I want you to hold the sun standing, because if it becomes dark, our enemies might overtake us in the corners we don't know. I want it to be daylight until our battle is over. And God held the sun in place. That is the only recorded incident, at least in the biblical history, where the sun stood still and lost hours. Forget about our changing of hours from this to this. That was God standing the sun at noon, and it stayed noon. It never went a single inch until Joshua had fought his battles. Here is what is recorded in Joshua chapter 12. Joshua chapter 12, 10 verse 12 to 15. At the end of 15, the Bible says, there has never been a day like this before or since, a day when the Lord listened to a human being. There has never been a day like this, and it will never be there, when God listened to a human being and changed the forces of nature. Listen, my friends, when you make a resolute commitment to love the Lord, you will have overcome the catch of just saying, I believe, I believe. You make a very resolute, firm decision to love the Lord. At that point, you can go to God and say, God, look at the troubles I have. I need every one of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, gone, and I trust you for it. And God will stand all your forces until you become victorious. Amen. God stood all my feast problems, put them aside. The sun stood still until I invited my sister to my PhD graduation, sitting there most of the time, having paid no cent from my pocket for my education, including my doctoral studies. 6 years of 30,000 a year, I never paid a single cent. God stood those forces and let me walk through, because I had said, God, if you love me, make my relative know that I worship you not because I'm stupid. I worship you because I'm smart. And so I continue to do. God can stop the forces of illness in your life. You have been sick for so long. You can make a resolute plan, and God will stand the forces of sickness and give you your healing. You have financial problems, God can stand all those and give you victory, because you have decided to be a living Christian. Finally, Jesus Christ himself, and you know this passage very well, in John chapter 1, verse 12. Jesus says, and I mean the gospel says, and as many has believed him, he gave them the power to be called the children of God. As many has believed him, he gave them the power to be called the children of God. I want to end by saying, most of the time, when we read that, we quickly rush to becoming children of God. And we forget, as many has received him. Praise God, my children of God. I believe I'm a child of God. I believe I'm a child of God. I have also become a child of God. The Bible says, as many has received him. Now, receiving, often when we read that, we hear a gift. But we forget the responsibility of the gift. For those of you who have wives and husbands, right? Let me use that analogy. You prayed and God gave you a man, right? And people came and celebrated. God gave you a woman. People came and celebrated. However, very quickly after the celebration, you begin realizing that this gift comes with the responsibility. And I learned very quickly myself when I was a young married man. I was a preacher who liked going wherever anybody wanted me to go. And no matter what, I will go. When I get married, I tell my wife, I'm going to go to preach in Kisumu and I'm going to be gone for 1 week. She's like, oh, hell no. I'm like, you are pastor's wife. Pastors need to preach. He's like, exactly. I'm a wife. And here's what wife says. You can't be gone for 1 week because there are ABCD things to be done. Then I quickly realized, okay, now I have to be a little smarter in organizing my preaching itineraries. I can't wake up and go preach with the Holy Spirit leading me. I have to consult my wife too, right? So you quickly realize that within the blessing is this responsibility. God has given you the gift, but that gift comes with that. And so with children too. We pray for God to give us children. When they come, in our U.S. context, they come with an 18-year-old package of taking care of them and paying their bills, right? And we have to juggle between different jobs and whatever we do to take care of our blessing. It's a gift, but it comes with that. So when God says, as many has received him, that gift comes with a powerful responsibility to live for God and live for him. When we have lived for God, God will live for us. When we worship him, God will bless us. When we give completely, fully to God, God will give completely, fully to us. Amen.
battle before there was Santa and Rick Snow. A start of a baby born who the world would soon know. Never before had there been such a sight. Would the son of a king have to suffer their plight? Aren't there armies to lead? Aren't there battles to fight? Shouldn't he conquer the world and demand his birthright? No, these frail little infants asleep in the hay would soon change the world with the words he would say. Not about power or demanding his way, but mercy and loving and forgiving God's way. For only through humility would the battle be won, as shown by the actions of God's only true Son, who gave up his life for the sins of everyone, who saved the whole world when his journey was done. Many years have now passed since that night long ago, and now we have Santa and reindeer and snow. But down in our hearts, the true meaning we know. It is the birth of that child that makes Christmas so. Jesus.